Hello and welcome back to another episode of LunchBytes. And Steph, you look a bit different today.
Oh, sorry, Chris. Didn't have my hair done today.
No, of course, Steph's away at the moment, getting some much-needed vitamin D. So Adam is kindly with us today. Thank you, Adam. Maybe just introduce yourself quickly, because I guess you've been more behind the scenes than front of camera this one.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been getting me in front of camera quite a bit recently,
I
actually,
have.
Chris. So thanks for that. So yeah, quick introduction for all of you. My name is Adam Jackson. And I'm the developer community lead at Microsoft UK. So I support all of our events and conferences and the meetup groups that we go to. So yeah, usually on the back, usually in the back of LunchBytes. So it's nice to be up front today. But I promise that I won't be speaking that much because actually we've got loads of wonderful panelists to hear from.
We do. So we should probably move on quite swiftly and talk through our normal logistical pieces here. So Adam, take us away.
Yeah, absolutely. So with every event that we do at Microsoft, we just draw people's attention to our code of conduct. The code of conduct is posted online at aka.ms/events.coc. You can also see that link on screen. But just to summarize, we ask everyone, whether you're joining us online or whether you're one of our speakers on today's show, to be aware of others, welcoming and respectful, understanding of each other's differences, friendly and very patient, open to all questions and viewpoints, and really, more importantly than everything else, kind and considerate to everyone. Good rule for us all to live by.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you're watching on Learn TV, then captions are available and on YouTube as well. So just use the button below the video. We'll also have this on demand on YouTube and Learn TV as well. So just use the selector below.
Super. Thanks, Adam. And more importantly as well, I think if you are on Twitch or YouTube as well, we are keeping an eye on the comments and the chat as well. So we do love engagement. This is going to be a very interactive session talking about all of the wonderful announcements from Build last week. So yeah, do get in touch with us. So just in case you're new here and maybe you haven't tuned in to LunchBytes already previously, we'll just go and give a little bit of a recap of what it is and make sure you've turned up to the right place, I guess. So LunchBytes is something that we've kind of started here in the UK, a show airing every couple of weeks. And the idea is that myself and Steph, and maybe a few others, as we'll talk about a bit later, are joined by technical experts from across the UK, so our cloud solution architects, customer engineers, to talk about all the things you care about with Azure. So we've had talks on Azure Arc, Logic Apps, DevOps, API management, and we've got an amazing backlog of content as well to come. Definitely keep an eye on the schedule, which will be over on Learn TV, and we'll drop some links to that as we go through. But yeah, plenty of great stuff to come with all of this. And I think that's as much as I really want to say on what LunchBytes is for now. I think we've got so much in store for today's session that I just want to move us ahead as quickly as we can. And maybe what I'll do here is just do the developer news radar. And it's really easy this week because there were so many announcements from Microsoft Build last week that we're not going to fit it into like a 1 minute segment or 2 minute segment on our developer news radar. A couple of good ones to call out, though, if you are just wondering. We've got an aka.ms link on the screen there, aka.ms/lunchbytes/build22-news. There's the book of news from Microsoft Build, and there are just so many announcements for you to go and check in on, ranging from cognitive services and the OpenAI service, all the way through to container apps going generally available, and so much more. I'm spoiling a few of the things we're going to talk about, I'm sure, today, but we will absolutely be talking all about those. If you're more of a visual person as well, there is this brilliant image here that has been made by Nitya, who is one of our cloud advocates here at Microsoft as well. I personally am a very visual person, so I love seeing things like this. So thank you, Nitya, for the amazing creativity and work that has gone into that. And once again, there is a link on screen there if you are interested. And I think that is about it in terms of what I wanted to talk about in terms of news updates, setting the scene, and logistics. I think we need to start bringing in some panelists because we've got a few of them waiting behind the scenes.
Let's bring them in. Who are we going to add
Let's do
first?
I will leave that to you.
Should we do them all together? Let's
1,
add
2,
everyone in.
3, go. There we go. Excellent. Welcome. How are we all, Steve, Steph, and Lubna? I see we've snuck in Tighe as well there. Maybe we'll save Tighe for a little bit later, perhaps.
Sorry,
Adam.
there we go. I got carried away there.
There we go. But welcome, everyone. Maybe let's start from the top of the screen and work our way down. So, Steph, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here at LunchBytes today. So I recently joined Microsoft, coming up 3 months in a week. And I'm colleagues with Chris and co. I'm in digital and app innovation. But before this, I was a data platform and AI MVP, all things tech and how we use it to solve problems. Make me super duper excited. So this is one of my favorite times of year because I get to play and learn about all these cool new things. So glad to be sharing it with you today.
Super. Thank you, Steph. Commonly referred to as Agent Luck, by the way, and have to ask us all on Twitter why that might be. Next up, Steve. The floor is yours.
Hello there. Hey, Steve Delight. So I am also in digital and app innovation at Microsoft, but I'm a specialist. So I'm kind of customers' first port of call for anything to do with building, developing, running, and supporting applications across our platforms. So lots of really interesting announcements of builds that hopefully, if I represent one of your kind of areas, I'll be kind of helping you on board with and getting to grips with as part of kind of enabling your business to use some of these tools.
Super.
That's me.
And last but no means least, the lovely Lubna.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I am cloud solution architect and mostly work with enterprise customers. Really excited about all these announcements. There are certain products that customers are already working on. Really happy with how things are going. We'll share some good updates later.
Super. Thank you, everyone. So I don't know at what point, Adam, you're going to duck away as well, because I know you said you were going to. There we go. Here it is. Super. We have a lot to cover. There were so many announcements, and I guess I hinted at some of them as we kicked off there. Maybe let's start with the topic around rapid code testing, deploying, and that kind of development environment perspective. There was Microsoft DevBox. There was some news around Copilot and the code. What was it? OpenAI Codex as well. GitHub, OpenID Connect. Lots of areas to start with. How are we feeling about DevBox?
I think it's interesting. So I do see a lot of scenarios where we have customers out there who do struggle to provision environments and get developer environments out to developers with the right kind of tools, the right frameworks in place, etc. And we do have things like dev test labs that kind of help with that. And it looks like DevBox is hopefully going to be an evolution of that. I think getting instant access to a Windows environment in the browser is going to be pretty exciting. I really like the idea that we've been going along. I think Codespaces kind of fits in this as well, where we kind of removed the need or the dependency for buying really powerful high-spec kit, which developers often love, but replaced that with cloud-based environments, which I guess really makes it accessible to everyone out there. It doesn't really matter if you can't afford a massive computer with a great GPU, etc. You can now rely on some of these services to start developing.
Yeah, and I think another thing as well is that time to productivity is such a big thing. I know, Steph, that you did a lot of consultancy work in the past as well, and I can imagine switching between projects and different customers and environments, probably different languages, different frameworks, different things that you need to think about. It's not easy to keep tearing up and spinning up and down all of those environments, right?
No, you're very right. So I got very good at some things like edge profiles, at rocking my VS Code extensions, containerizing all the things. Even doing things like Azure Lab Services to help spin up environments for different people. And this is a really big help. So putting my CEO hat on as well, we used to have devs and we'd be onboarding people and we'd have the machines in my startup as, we'd be installing stuff and getting things ready, on imaging the machine and then sending them out. And that would take a while and, as a time-consuming activity. But giving people that kind of online experience is great. And as you say, particularly from a startup perspective, if we could reduce that laptop cost down from £2,000 to £1,000, that would be a huge help on making us run for longer and keep our burn rate lower. So yeah, anything that makes it cheaper and easier for devs to get up and running is a great thing.
And we've just got the link up on screen there again, but if we bring up just my screen there as well, it's really interesting reading through the announcements itself. And again, this link we've been showing on screen here takes you to this page. It talks about leveraging things like Windows 365 to integrate dev boxes with Intune and Microsoft Endpoint Manager. And I think, Steve, something you mentioned earlier was Dev Test Labs and some of those other services that we're familiar with in Azure already. I think this is where that power and that holistic story really comes together. The fact that you can now manage these the same way you manage any of those other machines. You can not have to worry about the fact whether they adhere to those corporate policies and all these things that we need to protect our environment. Really, really powerful stuff. Really exciting. Cool. And then in that space as well, we had things like not so much Copilot news, GitHub Copilot, but OpenAI Codex as well. And I know, Steph, that is probably an area you're quite excited about, right?
So I know you said it's maybe not so much about Copilot, but GitHub Copilot is now generally available. I got sneaky access as an MVP to be able to use it, and it's been fantastic. So I write R, Python, .NET, Go. I write I would write my blog posts. I'd write Azure CLI. I'd write Bicep. ARM templates. I'd go across a whole range of software, data, and AI capabilities. And GitHub Copilot was an amazing scaler for me, so that I could be more productive. And it was brilliant for scaffolding things out. And now that it's GA, it also has a couple of additional features, like being able to describe in natural language what the code does. Yeah. So GitHub Copilot got us into the habit of, you'd write a comment describing what you wanted your code to do, and it would write out the code for you, giving you inline documentation. But now for projects that had been written where people were maybe not so great with the docs, you can now get those comments being generated and descriptions of what things do. So whether you're new to the programming language or just new to the code base, you can more quickly learn what's up with it and be able to advance more quickly. So I think that's super awesome.
And I think that was a theme certainly at our Microsoft Builds UK event last week. And for anyone tuning in across the globe, we had kind of regional versions of Build as well. And I think something that was a big theme for us here in the UK was about that sense of community, whether you are an enterprise developer, whether you're contributing to open source, whether you're a student who is just learning how to code, or maybe you're not even in IT right now and you're trying to transition into being a developer. There's something for us all to learn. And I love what you said there, Steph, about taking those almost English written words, those words just that explain the code, and being able to learn it that way. Really, really powerful. And of course, I'm sure we'll come back to it a bit later, but the Azure OpenAI service as well has some love because of all of the GitHub Copilot work as well. So great stuff there. And last but no means least, because I know we've got so many topics, so maybe last part on this section here, GitHub OIDC. I am a big fan of GitHub, as I'm sure we'll talk about a bit later as well. But for me, I think the OIDC pieces that came out from GitHub For anyone who's not familiar, imagine a world where you didn't have to use secrets anymore. So you're working with your I don't know, with Azure SQL database or Cosmos or whatever it is that you're working with. Imagine that you didn't have to use secrets from GitHub, and instead you could just rely on things like service principles. But even those service principles, you do not need to use secrets, and you could just natively go and use OpenID Connect to go and integrate and log in with that. Really, really powerful. It's actually how I deploy all of my personal blogs and all of that kind of stuff up to Azure. I try and eliminate all secrets, and I think a secretless world is better for everyone. Let's live out in the open.
So, Chris, if people are used to Azure, is that basically adding managed identity for GitHub?
Yeah, it's a nice way of thinking of it.
Smooth deployments.
Yeah, it's a nice way of thinking of it. You still have like a service principal behind the scenes, but rather than having to use a client ID and a client secret, what you can do is you can set up a trust between Azure and that service principal to the GitHub action workflow that you're running or the environments. And then effectively you say, Azure, it's good. I trust that environment. That's definitely me and my repository. You go and let that stuff run. All good. And then you can still assign permissions to the service principal like you would, you know, contributor, owner, reader, whatever you want to assign. So exactly that. Yeah. Now, I know we could probably talk more on that, and that's one of my favorite topics, but containers is another of my favorite topics. And I know, Lubna, that you're particularly excited about some of the cloud native stuff that was coming out as well. Container apps going GA, lots of AKS announcements. What did you think?
I'm really excited about all these announcements and mainly container apps. One thing, you know, it's a fairly new, you know, we announced it at Ignite, and I think Microsoft has put a lot of effort to get it live. As soon as, you know, you can see within 6-9 months, it's already GA. And I'm really excited about this. I think it follows the same theme as Steve and Steph were talking about, accelerating development and developer velocity. With container apps, developers can do a lot more. It opens more doors for more developers to deploy their containerized apps and microservices instead of worrying about configuring something like Kubernetes. So, you know, it's got brilliant features like scale to zero and run it within the private network, and takes only 2 commands to get your application up and running. One command to create an environment and the other command to create your container. So yeah, that's the one I'm most excited about. One thing I do want to say is Azure Kubernetes service is brilliant. This is not a replacement for that. So, but the other thing I want to say is, with more power, you know, more responsibility comes more responsibility. So, you know, if you don't want to go and deal with massive YAML files, I think you'll still be dealing with YAML files, but, you know, underlying configuration, then come with container apps. But if you are in that place where you want to play with underlying APIs for Kubernetes and update some underlying APIs, those are already available within AKS, then stick with that. But if you don't want to get into infrastructure and learn so much tech that takes you away from development, then stay with Azure Container Apps. Yeah, it gives things like valid certificates and all sorts of stuff. So I'm quite pleased about it, as you can see.
I'm just laughing at the comments that have been popping up on screen as well from Thindle over on over on Twitch. With more power comes not hurting Octocat with lightsabers. I promise no Octocats were harmed whilst mounting them to the wall. But good spot there, good spot. And Lubna, thoroughly agree. I know we had a special 30-second appearance from Tighe, who will be joining us a bit later, for something that Tighe and I did a session on the week before Build, actually, was container apps, to Azure Thames Valley, the meetup group that I run. So shout out to Azure Thames Valley. And we talked about things like Dapper and how you can go and easily switch between storage queues or service bus queues, or whichever flavor, whether it's another cloud provider, whether it's Kafka, being able to easily swap out all of those components. The power behind that as like a managed service is just incredible.
Yeah, and you don't really need to learn anything.
No.
It's built in within UI. It's so easy to configure, and then it uses the power of CADA as well, which is brilliant. Again, you don't have to learn that, but you can scale your workload to 0 when there is no traffic, and also when there is traffic, it will automatically scale it for you. One piece of advice: if you don't want cold start, then let one container run in. You might not, depending on your use case, but if you don't want cold start, let one container run in, so it's always available, but it will automatically scale to whatever maximum limit you have set, or come back down to 1 once there is no traffic. So yeah, it's an amazing tech, and I'm already working with few enterprises who were having challenges with AKS, and mainly around operations. Some developers are so excited, they took AKS on board, but it's the operational teams who were having challenges to change their ways, to learn things around how do we update, container apps fits that market really well.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm super looking forward to container apps, because I am one of those people who have struggled with Kubernetes, and I am much more. I much prefer platform as a service. So, heart functions for the win. Love my functions, but the container apps is a great way to do it. But also, there's a great announcement of kind of the. Because one of the biggest challenges I found when using AKS to try and build a public-facing Shiny dashboard for a customer was actually doing the DNS, doing the certificate, and trying to get all of that kind of web-facing stuff. There's now basically an add-on inside AKS that you can basically press play on and get all of those things set up for you. So not as an infra person, that is really helping reduce that time and stress and literal tears on getting things operational. So container apps definitely for the win, and AKS, it's nice to see it being made easier and lowering that infrastructure and operational requirements.
Absolutely. There is the feature you're talking about, Steph, is web application routing add-on. It's in preview right now, and it's amazing how it reduces the complexity. One more announcement around AKS. It seems like we are gradually moving that way. Draft V2. That's an open source technology. If some of you have not heard about it, and what that does is takes your code, converts it into a container, and puts it to cloud. So code, container, cloud. So you don't even need to learn how to containerize your workload. It will help you do that. It's called Draft V2, and it's in preview. It helps you with some key difficulties that developers are facing, take them to another level. And then obviously once it has done its part, then you can go and take those files that's automatically created for you and increase or learn from it, and then enhance them further to your requirement.
Yeah, and I've got that. If we switch back to the screen there as well, there's the announcement on screen there. Again, we've been bringing up the links on screen as well with the banners, but I think there's even integration with VS Code as an extension to easily bring that up as well. So again, just showing that end-to-end integration together, really, really nice. It's the AKS one there, sorry, Adam, rather than app service, that's the one. Yeah, really, really great end-to-end experience. But I think Adam takes us nicely actually onto app service. We should probably talk about as well, because again, so many announcements that came out from last week. I think gRPC support I saw on app service as well. That's something I've heard a lot of people waiting for.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one too. Not as much as container apps, obviously, but what it allows you, it will allow our customers to do client and server communication over HTTP 2.0. That means multiple parallel requests can send to the same connection, and that's really brilliant. There were a couple other announcements around app service, and I think some of my enterprise customers will be happy with that. VNet integration, it's now available on basic tier.
Yes.
So how good is that?
It's a big one.
It is a big one. And as you migrate part of app service, it allows you to do bulk discover on your environment. It will tell you which applications can be converted to a cloud workload. It will bulk assess, tell you, more details around each of them, and help you bulk migrate. So if you're on-prem, it will pick all that. With your input, it will push it onto cloud. You don't have to do as much as, going through looking for which applications are right for migration. It will help you do that. So that's a good one.
And I'd love for us to carry on talking app service. But again, there's so many. I'm trying to make sure we definitely don't run over here. But the final one maybe in this topic as well is API management. We've talked about container apps and the fact that really container apps are a great tool that you can use from microservices perspective. App services as well can also fit in that bucket. But typically you want to put those APIs, if you're using them, behind some kind of facade, and API management just keeps going from strength to strength. GraphQL capabilities now in API management. I think it went GA, if I remember rightly. Again, I'm trying to keep up to date on all the announcements myself.
Yeah, that's another great announcement. With GraphQL, the challenge is it addresses a lot of problems, like 3 key problems that we have with REST APIs. And as you know, we've been using REST APIs for like over 20 years. That's where GraphQL fits in, where it gives you, more analysis around sort of query depth. But using that Graph API with APIM, it makes it really secure. With introspection feature within GraphQL, what happens is if you deploy your GraphQL API in production, you get visibility to all sorts of stats that can be, a vector, attack vector, I would say, for some of the production loads. Putting your Graph API behind APIM, it would hide all that stats from a user and only keep them visible to the developer. And then obviously you can take benefit of other features within APIM, like rate limiting and only allow it to certain subscription monitoring, query injection. So it's a great announcement.
Awesome. Good. Next topic, because all of that we talked about was one of like the sub themes of Build. So Findle, who was saying you didn't get to catch Build and this stream is probably made for you, could not agree more. We're trying to do the bite-sized version and bring everything in here. And hello, Carl Codes. Good to see you, my friend. Hope you are well. Wanted to have a play with Azure Container Apps? Yes, lots of things to play with, for sure. So definitely make the time for it. Never enough time. Cool. I think, shall we move on to some data?
Yay! Data and AI time.
Here we go, Steph.
Yes. So I primarily want to talk about some of the data stuff. So we saw, first of all, Microsoft rebranding what you might call the Azure Data Platform to the Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform. So there is always the risk, when you see name changes that, it might be considered marketing veneer. But one of the things that they're really trying to do is solve that problem that we face in cloud, where there is like so much tech, so many different products, that's really hard to choose. So one of the big drivers with their kind of calling it all the intelligent data platform is they're making it more seamless for you to put your data in the right place, govern it easily, and be able to use it effectively. So that's something that we can look to the future to see, is that decisions will be easier around which tech do we pick for data. It'll get better. And within that, of course, we still have products and will continue to have products like SQL Server for the future, because it's not just the cloud, it's our data centers and our environments and the edge as well. So SQL Server 2022 is out for preview now. And one of the nice things is it's available for download and anybody can try it, which is super handy. And it has lots of different features, but two of the features that really spoke to me, one is the ledger capability. So part of building a more sustainable culture and environment, I look at things, some of the uses of blockchain and the power usage, and it's not great. So where some of the use cases for blockchain is around indelible ledgers. So having that proof of provenance for things like a supply chain. So raw materials produced or mined somewhere, being shipped to another country, being refined into more, ores and things, then being shipped to a manufacturer, then being shipped to a distribution center, then to a retailer, and finally to a person. That kind of ledger of provenance is a really strong area for blockchain. Now we actually have that in SQL Server, so we can be building our blockchain indelible ledger type use cases inside SQL Server or Azure SQL to be able to start building a centralized or even a decentralized access model to that ledger in a much more environmentally friendly way. There's still other great use cases for blockchain, and if you want that very federated, decentralized model, it could still be it'd still be valid. But internally or in a B2B scenario, it's going to be great having that ledger. Anything that helps us keep our planet going for longer, I'm really happy with.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And then the other one is, again, kind of like the Copilot and container apps that can help us really save time, is this data virtualization. So in kind of the traditional business intelligence type of paradigm, we would have our source systems getting data. We would then, source systems generating and storing data. We'd have ETL systems, extract, transform, load, taking copies of that data, inserting it into our big data warehouse, and then we just do analysis on it. That whole process was really difficult because developers had to make changes on those operational systems. ETL people had to make changes to the data migration solutions, and BI data engineers had to make changes to the data warehouse. It really slowed stuff down. Now, with data virtualization, the data backends for apps, whether they're Cosmos DB or SQL or table storage, whatever, we can be syncing that data into something like blob storage or even S3 buckets, which is really cool. For that multi-cloud environment that we might need to run. We can have that in our data lake, and now SQL Server can query against that data lake. So we can be building that schema on read. So now instead of the dev being slowed down by the analytics changes, the data engineer doesn't need to do as much. We don't need as much ETL. We can be focused on schema on read to make that, to be able to keep pace much more quickly. And also lower our costs because we're only storing once,
Mm.
which is really brilliant. So loving that data lake virtualization.
And if we maybe, because there's tons of the SQL side, again, I'm watching the clock as we keep going.
Yeah.
If we think maybe on the Cosmos DB side, one of the things
Mhm.
I was particularly interested in, and I some experience with Cosmos DB. I built some apps with Cosmos. One of the things that I thought was particularly cool, and maybe not everyone would appreciate the power behind this, is the hierarchical partition keys capability that is
Yes.
coming out. Big news.
Oh, very much so. So just because you don't have a relational database doesn't mean you can forego data modeling. In fact, it's actually much more critical because you pay for every operation. So if your data is modeled inefficiently in Cosmos, you can end up with really hefty bills. One of the challenges that people have often had is this idea of partition keys and unique identifiers for documents or objects that we're persisting. So with Cosmos DB, we use our partition key as basically a place to group similar-ish data. And, you know, in kind of a product case, you might group products by category. But in reality, even in that e-commerce case, actually, you usually have product, subcategory, sub-subcategory to be able to store stuff. So what we used to do to be kind of efficient with our Cosmos DB and data modeling is you'd kind of concatenate the product, the subcategory, and the sub-subcategory into a single value, and then use that as the partition key. But
synthetic
that meant
keys. Yep.
Yeah, synthetic keys. So that was how we used to do it, but actually that meant we can add a lot of sophistications and around how we used to do it, not just in the e-commerce case, but things like multi-tenant situations. Now, with being able to support a hierarchy about partition, so we can have that kind of product hierarchy, but we could also do it for things like a multi-tenant hierarchy, so you can have your customer and users within them. That really enables us to navigate much more efficiently, store our keys with this original semantic meaning, and just generally add clarity to our model. So it'll help us be more efficient. It'll help with the storage and help reduce our costs, and will help us make sure that we have things like the right security model or the right filtering model to better improve our applications. So super keen on that. And great for devs, there is now a MongoDB API local emulator. So if you're using MongoDB with things like functions or apps and container apps, you can have a scaleless, serverless backend from Cosmos DB written with a Mongo API, and you can be running it locally to test it. So that's a really great advancement. That means that you don't have to create a Cosmos DB instance before you get started with building your app.
And I think we've probably got maybe a couple of minutes left in the data side, but I know there's, again, tons more. We're trying to do the very condensed version.
Yeah.
I think we got things like Synapse and Microsoft Purview as well. What did we maybe want to give a shout out to, Steph?
Yeah, so Azure Synapse Analytics is really growing and evolving at a great pace. One of the big trends, kind of coming back to that data virtualization in the SQL Server space and how we can reduce the amount of effort involved in getting data and being able to analyze it, is this hybrid transactional analytical processing model, HTAP. So we used to have OLAP, which is online analytical processing, and Alt-P, online transactional processing, where Alt-P would be our line of business type things, and then our OLAP would be our cubes and stuff. And nary the two shall meet. So you'd have big, complicated processes getting data from one to the other. With HTAP now, what we're able to do is have Synapse Analytics sitting over our Alt-P systems, linked to them, and be able to build read-only replicas of that data inside this big data high-scale model without any ETL.
Nice.
So now the analysts and data scientists and data engineers have access to that data, can build insights without needing to do any ETL work to get data from one system to the other. So that's a huge productivity enabler. And again, helps make sure that devs can be spending all their time driving application value, and we don't have a highly coupled system where we have to move slowly because we've got so many moving interdependent parts.
Gotcha.
Oh,
awesome. Plenty to talk about there, and I'm sure Microsoft
Indeed.
Purview as well, plenty to talk about. But
Purview
we
all
will...
the things.
That's it. I think that's it.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, isn't it? But no, great stuff. And I just spotted change feed in SQL Server 22 and Azure SQL DB.
Indeed.
Lots of great stuff. But anyway,
So
I will
much.
keep us to time. So next up, we've got, I think, really focusing a bit on Windows and the store and Volterra. Tons of stuff in that space. I think the first big one being, Steve, around Edge.
Yeah, so Chris, I'm a bit emotional, if I'm being honest. I'm going to ask our viewers to, if they remember, cast themselves back to 1995. So very different time. I think the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was just coming to an end, so that was probably emotional for me at the time. I was probably playing Sonic and Knuckles on the Sega Mega Drive.
Nice.
And this thing called Internet Explorer, I think it was called Windows Internet Explorer then, launched officially, I believe in August of that year. So we're now, what, 26 years later? And Internet Explorer 11, or Internet Explorer in general, is being retired. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I really love Edge. Edge is an awesome browser, and this really makes sense for us to retire Internet Explorer and promote Edge and get our users moving more towards Edge. But it's been 26 years. And I'm 32. So for a large part of my life, Internet Explorer has been a thing. And we now have to say goodbye to it. So yeah, mixed bag. I will say to our viewers, if you are worried about it, that web applications that rely on Internet Explorer will still work past June. And I do have some customers that are in that position. So we will continue to support what we call legacy Internet Explorer applications within Edge. It's just Internet Explorer itself is being removed.
And I think there's some
yeah,
really great stuff. Yeah, but it's all for good reason, right? Like when we think about, you rightly said that the world was a different place back then, and now you look at the world. I know Steph will probably light up as I say my next part. I build my website using a static site generator called Hugo. I know Steph does the same as well. There we go. And something I've really made sure my site does well is have progressive web app support. So the ability to be able to make it look like that app runs locally. And there's some even more great stuff coming with progressive web app support with Edge and native capabilities as well, which is just so exciting. My development experience really stems from web dev, and for me to be able to start bridging that gap between web dev and native dev is just really awesome, really, really exciting. Lots of great stuff there. Yeah,
I think what's interesting, and my take on this is kind of like we're taking Windows development almost outside of Windows. And as an organization, we've started to, we are doing this quite continuously and promoting other platforms. But things like progressive web apps, also the .NET MAUI announcements that we've had, the updates to the Microsoft Store really allowed you to build on Windows and not just deploy to Windows, right? So web applications can obviously run on any device. .NET MAUI allows you to build .NET applications across multiple devices as well. And yeah, the future is going to be interesting. We also announced Project Volterra, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, which I guess it takes us not just multi-platform but multi-architecture. So being our kind of first desktop ARM device, I believe we do have kind of Surface Pro X, which is ARM based, but an ARM based development box with native Visual Studio running on ARM. That's going to be really exciting. I'm kind of keen to see where that goes.
Yeah, and that line that you said there about native Visual Studio running on an ARM box is huge.
Yeah.
Like the amount of time that it took to get to, I think, 64-bit, and now the fact of running on ARM as well as a capability is just amazing. Yeah, really great to see. And again, I think one of the things you mentioned was about the different store updates that are coming as well. I can't quite find it on the page here, but the fact that we now have the capability to deploy things like the progressive web apps to the Microsoft Store, things like Rust apps. I think I saw Node in there maybe as well. I forget the exact list, but there was a large number of things to show there.
But also, Chris, Android and Linux apps, I believe, that can then run through subsystem Linux and subsystem Android.
Yes.
Which again is interesting, and the concept of us Windows being this thing that isn't just Windows anymore. I think it's exciting to see what the future holds there.
Lots of great stuff. Super. And then last but not least, I suppose, in our kind of smorgasbord of topics that we've brought to the room here today, is one again, which I think our group is quite passionate about, is low code. Thinking of things like Power Apps, the Power Platform, Power BI, and all of those areas. So, Steph, did you maybe want to kick us off on that one?
Yeah. So one of the really cool announcements that came out was the work that Microsoft's doing on fusing developer level bots and citizen developer bots. So, we had code first bots with the bot framework, and that was great, super powerful, but very difficult to get a lot of people working on bots for your business. Then we had Power Virtual Agent come along and be kind of part of the Power Platform, where people could start building bots inside that space, and taking some of the lessons of being able to enable more people to build bots. We saw the Bot Composer come in with as kind of a graphical interface for building bots, and that was a really powerful piece for developers for building bots. Now they're bringing the Bot Composer experience and fusing it with virtual agents. So we can actually start seeing that, as well as kind of fully developer-led bots, we're now going to be able to collaborate more effectively between devs and business users on bots inside Power Virtual Agent, which will be really powerful because bots have both internal and external use cases. We can use it to save time on processes. We can use it to open up new business with customers. One of the things that I think we'll need to keep an eye on, and is always the case for me, is what's the application lifecycle maintenance and DevOps experience going to be like? Because for me, I want everything under source control. Even if for a user, they see it as kind of building in an app and a user interface, I want there to be code behind it. So that's something that I'm going to be exploring more and kind of really pushing to make sure that we keep that ALM part strong. So, Lubna, what do you think about Power Pages?
Power Pages, it's basically a name change, isn't it? I've used Power Portals in the past, and it's been in Microsoft for many years. It's an excellent tool to get your website up and running, which is already integrated with ADB2C, integrated with Dataverse. You can write model-driven apps and Canvas apps in the back end to do the back office stuff, but then use Power Pages to give a front to your organization. So yeah, it's a good name change as well, to simplify that. You just have to kind of create a template of the page and get it up and running. It's UI based. It's very easy to configure. You can embed JavaScript in there as well, and you can also write PCF controls. So power, I don't know what it's exactly, stands for PCF, but those controls are great where you want to embed your own code, where developers can write their own code and just pull it in. So that's really good, where you can design a website very quickly and just write certain plugins that you can just pull up on your pages. So yeah, it's a great product to get you up and running.
Yeah, I think it's also great because, again, with my AI hat on, we saw a while back Microsoft starting to prototype the idea that you could draw on a whiteboard, like a web page. You could wireframe it and then be able to turn that into HTML. That capability is now working in Power Pages. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, we now have ideation. So as a couple business users sitting around thinking, we need an app for that, being able to sketch that out, put names against the different fields, and actually have it start building that front end, but also that back end of mapping it to the parts of Dataverse. So, if you wrote like coming back to that e-commerce example, category, subcategory, and subcategory, that would map to those parts of Dataverse that are kind of pre-built models in that common domain. And you could have a full e-commerce management app from just talking about it and drawing that wireframe. That is so productive. Like, why would we ever write a CRUD, create, read, update, delete app ever again for something like that when we could just do a sketch? That's the value. I love it.
Yeah.
Super.
So I think they've leveraged on, a few years back we were provided with the cognitive APIs, and looks like someone has really thought about the use cases and bring it all together, and simplified it for our customers and ourselves, where we can just get it, sketch it, put it live fairly soon.
There's some great
Yeah,
stuff in there.
I was going to say, because I think what's powerful for me, as someone who, I probably haven't written any production code for about 10, maybe 5, 10 years. I like to call myself a developer, but I'm not really. I can kind of hack something together. And I think the thread here for me is, like, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, where you're from. There's something in this kind of toolkit, and there's something announced at Build where you can actually get hands-on and just build something that you're thinking of. I think the Power Pages and the Power Virtuations, etc., are really powerful in kind of allowing anyone without code experience to, create something from scratch and realize their vision. And then also, going back to things like the container apps, not having to learn the ins and outs of Kubernetes or anything kind of complex, and just being able to upload a container to the cloud. So yeah, I was just going to say, I think a big thread for me is just that accessibility and making sure that anyone anywhere can build on our platform.
Super.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to add is a lot of people take this technology as it's for citizen developers. I personally think it really helps developers. We have got, as a developer, there is so much to do and so much demand of developers. If you have got these sort of tools that do maybe 60% of the job, then you can actually focus on 40% where you actually bring the value.
Super. No, everyone, great discussion, some great points. And I think it really emphasizes what we said in the beginning about our UK Microsoft Build event as well, and this end-to-end developer community that we have. Whether you're students, whether you're existing developer, been developing for years and years, there is something for you in all those announcements. So thank you, everyone. We will bring you back on screen very shortly, but we'll just put you behind the scenes for a moment, just while we do some quick announcements. So if I just bring my screen up and we bring back Adam, we're going to talk about just some useful resources based on everything here. So Adam, did you want to talk about the Open Hack coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. And so if we've got an open hack coming up 14th to 16th of June, which is the app modernization and NoSQL open hack. So it's a good sort of cross app innovation and data and AI hack that helps develop a lot of skills. We'll be sending information to this to all of the Microsoft account teams this afternoon. So hope you can make it to that. Ask your managers about it, or drop us an email at lunchbytes@microsoft.com if you don't have a direct invite, and we'll try and get you along to that.
Super. And of course, we always talk about things like cloud skills challenges. So aka.ms/lunchbytes/build-skills. And more excitingly on this one, build 22-skills. I've got the link wrong on the slide there. With this one, you can get a free exam voucher, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, yeah. So you can take any of the cloud skills challenges on screen, and I think you've got till the 21st of June. There we go.
That's it.
And then if you complete the challenge by the 21st of June, take your pick. You'll get one exam voucher on your Microsoft account, and that will land at the end of June, and you can use that for most of the exams, not all. Check out the terms and conditions in the FAQs.
Of course. Super. And last but not least, of course, community. We've talked about it a few times. Big part of what we do here in Microsoft and Microsoft UK. Got some great stuff coming up.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe I'm going to struggle to fill this slide out, but there's loads of stuff happening.
Yeah.
So check out the list. We'll try and share those on Twitter as well. I'm going to be at a few of these, particularly Scottish Summit, which still tickets available for free. If you want to join us for a couple of days next weekend in Glasgow, really looking forward to that one. I
hear South Coast User Group has a brilliant speaker going on the 7th of June as well.
There is suggestions that there might be, yeah.
And on that note, actually, moving on to the final thing before we bring everyone back here, is we should introduce Anika and Tighe as well, who are again backstage somewhere if we want to bring them in. Hello, Anika and Tighe. So for anyone who's been following LunchBytes, of course, you've seen me and Steph kind of leading the way on this, or Steph and I. I'm going to be moving away from my current role at Microsoft and moving over to GitHub. So I know, Adam, that very face there. But we have the brilliant Anika and brilliant Tighe as well, who will be taking the reins over LunchBytes and charting into new territories. So did you both want to do some intros, maybe? Tighe, it looks like you're off mute there.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. My name is Tighe Brennan, and I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft UK. I sit in the same team as our wonderful panelists today, the digital and app innovation team. And this isn't actually the first time that I've been on LunchBytes. You may recognize me from the previous episode of LunchBytes, where I talked about Azure Arc for application services. And so I'm really excited to continue the great work that Chris has done with hosting at LunchBytes, and we've got a lot of great content to come over the coming months.
Super. Thank you, Tighe. And Anika.
Hi, everyone. My name's Anika. I'm the Digital and App Innovation Specialist at Microsoft. And yeah, just super excited to be here, be part of the team. And I guess you'll be seeing my face a lot more often along with Tighe as well.
Super. Brilliant. And that is it, I think, in terms of today. Next time, and if we bring everyone else, actually, no, let's bring the screen on first before we do that. Next time, we'll have Simon Thurman coming along to join us to talk about seeing clearly with application insights. So June the 15th, come and join us for that. There we go. A great array of faces and folks from our wonderful apps community here. Thank you all for joining today. It's been a super session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
On Simon's session, there's now AI inside, part of a build announcement that we were unable to cover. Is improvements to application insights. So
No
definitely
spoilers
check that
there.
out.
There we go. You'll have to watch that next time.
It's a teaser rather than a spoiler.
Okay.
Super. Well, thank you, everyone, and tune in next time. See you then.
Bye, folks.
Check out the link
Thanks,
below
everyone.
for all of our links from today. See you next time.
Bye.